What's up, everybody? Today, we finally get some of those connections exposed in front of the jury. The defense has been pushing so hard for that the Commonwealth has tried to block, the Alberts have tried to block, other friends of the Alberts have tried to block. The judge allows the defense to go in right in the beginning. And then later, we finally get a connection from the Commonwealth of somebody who potentially puts John O'Keefe in the front yard at 34 Fairview at the time the Commonwealth, at or around the time, I should say, the Commonwealth has said in their theory of the case. Are they finally connecting some dots? We're going to talk about that and much more. And of course, get your questions answered in today's video. So make sure you hit that like button and let's get started. All right, it was a half day today, but still a lot to be covered because right off the rip, yesterday's hearing about what was going to come in between the relationship of Caitlin Albert and I think it's Caitlin, all these Katies, Caitlin McLaughlin, the first responder that was at the house that day, it's going to come in. The judge gave the defense quite a bit of leeway, and I was happy with that because, as I said yesterday, it should come in. This is the exact kind of evidence that's important in a very important witness because judging the witness's credibility is for the jury and it's before the jury and it's relevant. And if she said things that aren't true and this witness can impeach her, they should be able to get into that. Now, she sustained some objections, but a lot of people were telling me this judge is so biased, no way she's going to let him get into this. And I'm glad that she made the right decision. Because again, I'm just judging this based off what I see in this case. We also had some funny moments in court today as we've had throughout the case, so we'll get to those as well. But first, let's jump in right from the beginning of Cross, how we started the day, talking about their relationship and even more connections than the jury. Now, we may be hearing things in some of these hearings outside the presence of the jury, but the jury gets to listen to this today.
Good morning.
Ms. Albert, I'd like to go back to a discussion of Katie McLaughlin.
Okay.
Yesterday, I asked you a four-word question.
I do.
You would agree with me that your response was not, she's a firefighter.
Correct.
Your response was not, she's a friend.
Correct.
Your response was not, I've known her for years.
Well, I sort of alluded to that when I said that I've known her since high school.
Right. Your response was that she was somebody that you knew in high school, correct?
I said that I went to high school with her and she's my same age. We graduated the same year.
Right. So you referenced high school, correct?
Yes.
All right. You would agree with me that you've seen her several times since high school, correct?
Yes.
You have hung out in the same group with her several times since high school, correct?
Yes.
And you graduated high school in 2014?
Yes.
It is now 2024?
Yes.
Your contact with Katie McLaughlin has been fairly consistent over the years in that it continued at least until 2021, correct?
I would agree with that, although it was far and few between. But
Is that
throughout the
because-
years, yes.
Do you say that because the photographs are far and few between?
Objection.
Sustained.
You would agree with me that there was not a 3-year period prior to January 29th of 2022 where you didn't see Katie McLaughlin at all, correct?
A 3-year period?
Right.
I can't say 100% yes to that, but I wouldn't be surprised if I had seen her at some point in time over the past couple of years and before John O'Keefe's passing. Yeah.
Seen her a couple of times, does that mean that maybe you bumped into her and said hello?
It would mean that we would be in the same place at the same time, not something that I reached out and invited her to in any way, shape, or form. But, you know, again, we have mutual friends. So I would not be surprised if I went somewhere and she happened to be there as well.
Okay.
So, and again, I know he's getting this information in through Ms. Albert here, but I actually think throughout this exchange and even in the beginning, she was more honest, and I think her explanation of their relationship was more plausible than Ms. McLaughlin's. I really have a problem with the way Ms. McLaughlin characterized their relationship from like, yeah, Caitlin Albert, there was a girl I went to school with that had that name, as if we don't know if that's the same person's name when you showed up to their house, which is where she lived when you knew her back in high school.
And it would have been a surprise to you that she showed up at whatever place you were at in those 3 years. Is that your testimony?
No, it would not have been a surprise to
You
me.
would have known in advance that Katie McLaughlin was going to be at the same place that you were in advance.
Not necessarily, but
Ever in those 3 years?
Objection.
Isn't it true that only 8 months before January 29th of 2022, you and Katie McLaughlin were at a baby shower together?
Objection.
Do you know that? Yes. Go ahead. Yes, we did.
You were. Whose baby shower was it?
It was a mutual friend of ours.
What's her name?
Her name's Alyssa.
And how many people were at that baby shower?
I can't say for sure. I mean, it was Alyssa's family
All right.
and a bunch of friends. I can't put a number on it.
The friends all gathered together and took a photo together with the woman having the baby shower, correct?
Objection.
Was there a photo taken?
I believe so.
You were in that photo, correct?
Yes,
Who was standing next to you?
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, if you saw the photo, would that refresh your memory?
Yeah.
May I approach?
Yes.
That photograph, Ms. Albert, who is standing next to you?
One of my friends is on the left of me and Katie McLaughlin is on the right of me.
Oh, she's right next to you in that photo, correct?
Yes, she is.
That was in June of 2021, correct?
Yes,
So if somebody testified that you hadn't seen each other in 3 years prior to January 29th of 2022, that would be wrong, right?
Objection.
So I would have let her answer that if I was the judge, because she's now impeaching Katie McLaughlin. Judge didn't let her, but you get the point. The defense is like, so if somebody said they hadn't seen you for years and years and you're agreeing, you're seeing them right there in 2021, showing her the picture. Now the jury doesn't get to see the picture, but they get to hear the whole conversation around the picture. I think that's a pretty good job on cross. Sarah, question: when a defense team poses an alternate theory of a case, in this case, a cover-up or a third-party culprit, as we'll call it in other cases, how/with whom does the theory originate? Does the defendant come to the lawyers with this theory? I think it's a combination usually. Now, sometimes they can be like, yeah, I wasn't there. I saw this guy do it, or somebody told me it was this guy, and the defendant can originate the theory. Other times it's like, I swear I wasn't there. So the lawyers start building the case with an investigator, whoever it may be, and they start saying, hey, this is pointing to this pointing to that, and they feel like they get evidence, and they're like, actually, it was this. So it can be usually a combination between what the defendant says, information the lawyers gather, and the lawyers kind of putting together the evidence as they gather it. KS said, shout out to high maintenance gals. More on this coming later, but I love a good high maintenance gal.
And with regard to the contact that you've had with her in terms of group events, you would agree with me that it wasn't just day trips that you took with her, correct?
correct.
You've also gone on road trips with her, correct?
I've gone away on trips that she was with. I didn't drive with her or go with her or invite her, but she has been there. Yeah.
Okay, and what road trips have you taken overnight where you and Katie McLaughlin have been together since high school?
Objection.
Sustained.
You've gone to Maine with Katie McLaughlin, have you not?
Objection.
So we need a time frame, Mr. Yannetti, not just 10
Sure.
years ago.
Since high school, you've gone to Maine with Katie McLaughlin, correct?
Objection.
Oh, wow. Did you go to Maine with her?
I did. And the year would have been like 2015 or 2016.
If I suggested it was July of 2016,
Again, pretty honest. And then he says, if I suggest it was July of 2016, she says yes. Pretty honest to me. Chris said he feels like every witness qualifies every answer. So annoying. It is true. It is annoying, but it's kind of lawyer-like. Lawyers like to qualify things too. And thank you so much for the congratulations, Chris.
would that make sense?
That would sound about right. Yeah.
And while you were in Maine, there were 7 of you in a hot tub together, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You were in a hot tub with Katie McLaughlin in Maine, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Let me approach you, Ron.
Yes.
I'm going to skip this sidebar.
You've been to Maine with Katie McLaughlin in 2016. Where was it in Maine?
I'm not sure the exact town.
Right, probably 4 hours away.
I'm not sure how long it took to get up there.
It wasn't 10 minutes away.
No.
And it wasn't a half hour.
No.
All right. It was more than 2 hours, correct?
Maybe.
And you drove, correct?
Yes.
How many days did you spend in Maine?
I'm not sure. Maybe 2.
So you were up in Maine over.
Definitely more than a day trip to the beach, right? And that's the point, is he's impeaching Katie McLaughlin. And at this point, I mean, it's bad. And if the judge would not have allowed this, I mean, that would have been really tough, really tough.
For a weekend?
Yep.
With Katie McLaughlin, correct?
Yes, as well as a bunch of other friends.
Oh, of course. But the answer to my question is you were with Katie McLaughlin, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
How many times have the 2 of you been to the beach together since high school?
Objection.
Do you know?
By the way, start to notice every time he says, of course, because the funny moment is coming up.
If you can answer that, go ahead and answer.
I know that we have been to a beach together, but I don't know how many times. I could guess.
Don't guess.
Okay.
Next question, Mr.
You
Yannetti.
said a beach. Does that mean that the 2 of you only go to one particular beach?
No,
No, you've gone to multiple beaches with Katie McLaughlin, correct?
not that I can remember. I can't remember how many times. I have one memory, but I can't say for sure how many times I've been to a beach with Katie McLaughlin.
If I showed you a photograph of the 2 of you on a beach together in bikinis, would that refresh your memory?
Objection.
Mr. Yannetti, you can show her a photograph.
Thank you. Let me approve.
Yes.
Katie McLaughlin is in that photo, correct?
Yes, along with a bunch of other friends.
Of course, there are other friends, but you.
Mr. Yannetti, please no more, of course.
Of course, Your Honor.
I love it. I just love it. I love it. Let me just tell you, okay? I mean, this is a moment I can add something to. I always love it when stuff like this happens and we can have these discussions. It was hilarious. It's all in good fun. He can't help himself so much that even when the judge tells him to stop saying of course, he says of course to your honor immediately. And there's a couple reasons. Lawyers pretty often have tics, especially, I don't know if tics is the right word or tics is probably not the right word. Crutches, I think is what I'm looking for. It's something they lean on. It's something that helps them think. It buys them some time. It also makes them sound polite while also potentially sarcastic with witnesses. And some lawyers, like I know I've read some transcripts back where I say, I understand that. And then I'll ask a question where it's like, you're not answering my question. Or sometimes when I get on a roll and I'm going pretty quick through cross-examination, I'll say, and you didn't do this, and you didn't do that, and you didn't do this. And it's annoying and I don't need to say it. And it's just extra words, but it just is a crutch that sometimes happens between questions on cross. And for him, of course, is a bit of a crutch where he's trying to let them know, we get it, obviously, but answer my question. But he's trying to seem polite, make it sound like he's listening, which of course he is. Although later he says, I'm glad one of us is paying attention. And the judge is like, enough with of course, enough. And he's like, of course, Your Honor. And in a second, she's about to strike, of course, from the record because she really doesn't want him to say it. My problem is, I don't think there's anything inappropriate legally about saying, of course. He's not doing it on purpose. Yes. Alan Jackson says, sure, I've noticed the same thing. And it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, I just did it with and you may notice it now. But I think it's kind of annoying that she strikes it from the record and really harps on it. And yeah, a bunch of people are saying, how about no more what if any? Like, I don't really think there's a legal reason for her not to allow him to say, of course. Is it argumentative? I mean, I don't know. Do you mean quirks? Maybe quirks. You guys know how I am sometimes. These things slip me sometimes. But okay, so let's keep listening. I'm going to back it up just so we can kind of laugh again.
Cape.
And Katie McLaughlin is in that photo, correct?
Yes, along with a bunch of other friends.
Of course, there are other friends, but you,
Miss Dianetti, please no more, of course.
of course, Your Honor. With regard to that photo, once again, you are right next to Katie McLaughlin. Were you not right in back of her?
She's in front of me, yes. And the mutual friends that I already said that we have are also in the photo.
Of course. Let me ask you this:
Jurors, I'm going to strike that, of course.
has anybody in this courtroom today asked you about the other mutual friends who were there? Did I ask you today whether there were other mutual friends in that photo?
Objection.
Sustained.
You added that to your answer, correct?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
Yes.
Who are your college roommates?
I
Objection.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Who were your college roommates?
Yeah, sustained.
How many college roommates did you have?
Objection.
Sustained.
Fair to say that Katie McLaughlin has been with you and your college roommates.
Yes.
When was that?
2015, 2016.
And there were two college roommates that you and Katie McLaughlin were with, correct?
I had multiple college roommates at that time, and two of them were the mutual friend that Katie and I share.
And in fact, there was an occasion where you were in a kitchen with your two college roommates and one other person, correct?
Objection.
Need a time frame or something, Miss Dianetti?
Well, that was around 2016, was it not?
That sounds about right, yes.
And do you recall which college roommates they were?
Objection.
Sustained.
And someone took a photo of you, your two college roommates, and one other person, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
In 2016.
Objection.
Sustained.
This is one of those moments where he doesn't really care what the answer is. He wants to ask these questions in front of the jury. The judge is giving him leeway to ask the questions. He's putting it in the jury's mind that they're a lot closer, like a lot of KC Cat and other comments have said. Brandy asked, Peter, what is the benefit to the defense if they impeach Katie's testimony? Thanks for all you and John do. So Brandy, she is one of the witnesses that testified that she heard Karen Reed say, I hit him. And that's probably the biggest piece of evidence to this point that Karen Reed committed this crime is her own admission of saying, I hit him. And so the witnesses that say they heard that, because not all witnesses say they heard that, and other people in the same area didn't necessarily say they heard that. So how credible are those witnesses? There's going to be a jury instruction that tells the jurors, you get to weigh the credibility of the witness. And if you find they're not credible for one reason or another, and that can be because they lied under oath or they gave inconsistent statements or somebody else came up and impeached them, you can throw out their whole testimony. That's something you can do as a jury. That's why it's so important. Belinda said, is it a Bostonian thing to say, sure? I don't think so. I mean, I say it a lot too. I know a lot of people that say it, and I don't know if I have a ton of friends that are Bostonians, not because I have anything against them. I just don't know that there's a ton down here. A lot of people from Ohio seem to be down here, and now New York and California, not a ton from Boston. Michael, can Alberts sue attorneys for slander for being accused of murder if this theory is made up? I mean, can they sue? Sure. But do they have a reasonable basis for believing this? Are they going to argue truth as a defense? Do they really want to get into that fight with these lawyers? My guess is probably not. Francis said, and congrats on 350K subs. Thank you, Francis.
May we approach?
Okay.
Another sidebar.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm showing you another photo from S for identification, ma'am. Look at that and look up at me when you're done. Who's in that photo?
Myself, two of my college roommates, and Katie McLaughlin.
Okay. So Katie McLaughlin's the only one in that photo who's not one of your roommates, correct?
Yes.
And was this a situation where she just showed up unexpectedly like all the other times? You had no idea she was going to be there?
Objection.
Ask the question differently. That it's sustained enough.
Thank you, Honor. Did you expect, well, by the way, whose kitchen is that?
It was the college house that I lived in.
So your kitchen.
The house we were renting, yes.
You lived in that kitchen.
Yes.
And Katie McLaughlin's in your kitchen.
Yes.
Who invited Katie that day?
The two mutual friends that I lived with.
Certainly you didn't invite Katie.
And Lauren, this is interesting. Yeah, because there's a lot of repetition now on the cross too. In the beginning, it was like, oh, wow, first time we heard this. Now it's like, okay, we've heard this a bunch of times. We get it. They're friends. Like, we get it. They're friends. And I'm playing the whole exchange because, again, I think I've gotten it at this point, and there's still a couple minutes left of him going over these connections. So it's like, how far is too far? And Lauren also said, I have randomly ended up at the same events and in photos with people I knew in high school many times over the years since. None of them would cover up a murder or frame someone for murder for me. I agree with you. I do think that it's the way that they describe their relationship is the problem. If they would have just said we're friends or we're acquaintances or said, yeah, we've been at the same places, then maybe they wouldn't be able to be impeached with this, but they definitely downplayed it, number one. But number two, you've pointed out one of, I have found to be multiple major holes in the defense's theory. I by no means think the defense has proven anything in this case. And frankly, I don't think a lot of what they're trying to bring in as third-party culprit or the cover-up has really come into evidence. Their questions have, but they're not evidence. They need more, in my opinion. So I don't think they've done anything really to prove that. They've definitely made me raise my eyebrows and side-eye some people and think some of this testimony is less credible. But at the end of the day, they don't need to prove their theory to me. What they absolutely have done is made me think, what's the Commonwealth doing? What are they proving? When are they going to connect some dots? So they've done a really good job of that. Even if this is a good point. Another good point is if you really did have an accident that ended in death in your basement and he hit the back of his head on a weight bench or whatever, I'm not really even positive what the theory is. Why not just call the cops and have everybody, say they didn't hear the play fighting and instead he literally fell and did that? Or, we were messing around downstairs and he fell and hit his head. Or we all came running downstairs and he was laying there on the floor. I mean, you can make up lies that make a lot more sense than this. Why leave him on your front lawn? Why not go and throw him on the neighbor's front lawn or in a ditch or whatever? Make a better plan to where all the fingers wouldn't be pointed back at you because it was so obviously on your lawn. And I get the response that put it on your lawn makes it easier to point the finger at Karen Reed. That's fine. But there are issues on both sides of this case. And guess what? That's a win for the defense. If neither side can really prove their case, that's a win. That ends up in a not guilty verdict. At least it should, in my opinion. Katie, what does the lady next to the witness have over her mouth? So it's court reporting. There's different ways to do it. That's one way. She's speaking the words in for the transcription. That's a lot of people have had that questions. Why do many lawyers say you would agree with me? I've heard that many times. They say that to folks on the stand. It's just another way of asking, this is true, correct, right, yes. Would you agree with me? A different way of, putting the answer in the question for leading questions.
correct?
I did not.
Because you're not close friends with her at all, correct?
I am not.
In fact, you don't really like her very much, do you?
Objection.
Sustained.
You guys were teammates on the track or cross country team back in high school, correct?
I don't recall that.
Wow. That definitely proves they'd cover it up for each other because they were both on the cross country team together.
Actually, we could have been. I'm not sure.
I may approach.
Yes.
Once again, place S for identification before you, ma'am. If you look at the first page and then the second page.
It's a good one, Saki.
I may approach.
Yes.
Having reviewed those 2 pages, does that refresh your memory about your teammate, Katie McLaughlin?
Yes, it does.
And you certainly were teammates in high school, correct?
Yes.
And you would agree with me that that relationship continued in terms of your contact with her all the way up through 2021, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would offer the photos that are in S for identification as full exhibits in this trial at this point.
Objection.
The objection sustained. You should put those back up with the clerk, Mr. Nang.
All right. So that's the basic end of that section. I'm going to hit some questions here. Izzy, hi, Peter. Are the Alberts the Boston Murdaugh? I don't know if I'd go quite that far. Mac, what's up? This is such a bizarre case. The Commonwealth has barely tied Karen Read to the scene or case at all. Law enforcement was drinking and driving. Tragic for the victim. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the little, I don't know if I'll call it a dirty little secret of this case, but it seems like everybody was drinking and driving. They say later, like, oh yeah, Matt McCabe was for sure the only one not drinking. That's why he drove us all home. And then the people that were driving around that night have not said they were drunk, but we have some people admit today that they were under the influence. Mike, I don't know why, but it really made me bothered that the last witness of the day called the prosecutor Lally. How well does she know him? Are they friends? It's kind of like Kenny, right? I noticed that too. There's a lot of, lack of, I don't know if professionalism is the word, but it definitely seems to be a little fast and loose there. I don't know. Austin, as someone that has worked with attorneys for 30 years, I always appreciate your level-headedness. Thank you so much, Austin. Where your truth. Ohio girl traveling to Clearwater for vacation. Looking forward to your live chats with my toes in the water. Thanks for following this crazy case. Yeah, I mean, I feel like most of the people I know here are from Ohio. So many Ohio connections. Nina, Peter, do you think there's a possibility the prosecutor is secretly helping the defense because he thinks Karen is guilty, but had to prosecute, doesn't think Karen is guilty, but had to prosecute her? No, I don't think that's happening here. Wendy, can Karen get attorney's fees? The prosecution does not prove their case and the investigation was a joke. So generally speaking, no, you can't get attorney's fees just for a not guilty verdict if you win your case, because a not guilty verdict doesn't always mean you're innocent, right? It could mean not proven. But if the defense in a civil case can prove a cover-up, or that they lied in the investigation, or lied in affidavits, or committed perjury, covered up evidence, destroyed evidence in order to pin something on Karen Read, then yes, potentially there could be a cause of action. So in most cases, when there's not guilty verdict, there's no cause of action unless there is actually wrongdoing on the part of the prosecution or law enforcement investigators, things like that. Nick, Peter, do you really like getting murderers off? So Nick, I would say no, but my question is, do you really like innocent people going to prison, or people getting railroaded by the system, or dirty cops, or dirty prosecutors? The reason for having criminal defense lawyers is to make sure innocent people don't wind up in prison. And we don't have a state where the government shows up and can violate all your rights and do whatever they want to you, because people that people say this about are the ones at the end of the day that stand between you and that. And citizens of the United States of America. And that's why it's so important. That's why we have rights. That's why our rights grow or are protected. And before any rights get taken away, there's hell to pay, mostly because of lawyers. Hate them or love them. Casey Cat, the prosecutor seems to only be trying to the Alberts, etc. Didn't do, John. Instead of proving KR did it. It makes no sense Sad for the O'Keefe family. Chances of getting justice. It definitely feels like most of this case is focused on the Alberts and not Karen Reed. Elise, why are so many of the prosecution witnesses caught in lies? So even small lies, even things that might not matter, even things that, the defense might be blowing up or making a much bigger deal of than they might be. If this is the sentiment of the jury, which I understand why you feel this way, Elise, that's not good for the Commonwealth, right? I think we can all agree on that. All right, let's get back to the testimony here. Tristan, her boyfriend. Okay, so this was a really good inconsistency I thought brought up by the defense. Tristan, her boyfriend, was on call to do snowplow that night, so he goes home to sleep. So why does it make any sense that an hour and 45 minutes later, which we know that drive was somewhere between 19 or 21 minutes to 25 minutes, not 20 minutes. 19 was testified to, 21 to 25 minutes. So if he left, it takes him, let's just say 20 minutes to average it, to get home. By the time he got home, an hour later, he's basically got to turn around and drive back because she was only there for an hour and 45 minutes longer than him. How does that make any sense? How could that be the plan? Why wouldn't you just go downstairs to the basement and lay down? But that's what she said. And she even said that was kind of the plan. We had talked about that before, and we'll see if Tristan agrees. But let's hear her explanation of how all that went down.
Have you ever told anyone that before, Ms. Albert, that the plan from the start of the night was that Tristan was going to make 4 trips total from Canton to Easton, Easton to Canton, Canton to Easton? Have you ever told anyone that before?
I don't remember if I mentioned that to anybody.
That was the first time you've ever said that just now before this jury. Would you agree with that?
I believe so.
Almost 2.5 years after January 29th, correct?
Correct.
Isn't it true that you decided at 1:45 in the morning that it was important for you to get home?
At 1:45 around.
And these are crafted questions, carefully crafted questions. At 1:45, it was important for you to go home. The deed had been done. Your stories were straight and you needed to get out of Dodge. That's what he means. Because she was planning on somebody else taking her home, clearly, because her boyfriend left to get sleep because he might be up all night plowing snow, which has been the testimony of everybody.
That time is when Tristan picked me up, a little bit after that, but I didn't want to get snowed in at my parents' house.
It was important for you to leave 34 Fairview, correct?
I wouldn't say important, but it was something that I wanted to do.
It
Yes.
was important enough for you to leave, correct?
Yes.
And you made the decision to have Tristan drive from Easton to Canton to pick you up, correct?
Yes.
How far is it from Easton to Canton?
From our apartment in Easton to 34 Fairview Road is about 18, 19 minutes.
Okay, and that's when there's
18, 19. Why wouldn't you just say 20 minutes? Right? And when Tristan testifies, he says 21 to 25 minutes, not 20 to 25 minutes. I find that stuff weird. I don't know.
not a snowstorm outside, correct?
Correct.
If I was prepping this witness, I'd say, why don't you just say about 20 minutes? That's something I would correct. Like, just say about 20 minutes. Don't say 18, 19 minutes. Just say about 20 minutes or 15, 20 minutes.
Of course, in a major snowstorm, you certainly can't drive as carefree as you can when you're driving in good road conditions, correct?
Right.
And your boyfriend was making that trip multiple times that night, correct?
Yes.
So again, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why that would be the plan, right? You guys correct me if you disagree in the chat. She also never heard anything outside. No yelling, no smashing, no tire screeching, no car accident. She didn't see any shoe, hat, blob, or anything in the snow. 45 pieces of tail light, cocktail glass, none of it. She didn't see any of that in the snow. She had been drinking. It would not have been a good idea for her to drive, okay, because we did get some of that confirmation today. And she said she wasn't looking because she was focused on Tristan when they drove by the yard, so she wasn't even looking in her dad's yard. Now, multiple times during her testimony and during testimony today, an ambulance or cop car, somebody would go by where you'd hear sirens. It's so loud that they have to stop questioning and answering. I am just waiting for the defense to say, tough to ignore that, right? Or would you be able to sleep through that? Or pretty loud, right? And we're inside a court building. This is not exactly some shoddy built, stick building. This is probably concrete or whatever it's built out of. I've never been there, so I don't know. And we can hear it pretty loud and clear every time they walk by, so much so that we can't even speak because you can't understand what each other's saying in the same room. Or are they saving it for closing? And just if by God's providence, an ambulance drives by and they could say, I got to stop, but could you believe they all said they just slept through that? Everybody showing up to the house, emergency vehicles, somebody non-responsive in the front yard, and they all just slept through it. I mean, it's happened multiple times throughout the trial, and it keeps clicking in my head like, when are they going to bring that up? And if they have, maybe I've missed it, but you guys tell me. Then we get to her redirect. She doesn't know if the front lights were on. And on cross, he's like, nobody asked where you were looking on cross. Yanetti's like, nobody asked. Why do you keep saying you were looking at Tristan or your attention was on Tristan? Why do you keep saying that? Nobody asked. And then what does Lally do on redirect? He's like, let me ask you a question. Where were you looking when you guys left? It's like, so now somebody asked, but I was like, eesh. I don't know if they were baiting him. If I was a prosecutor, I just wouldn't have asked. I would have just left it alone. It didn't land, perfectly for the defense, but after he asked it, now it looks like you kind of agree. All right, let me hit a couple more questions because we are done with this witness. Ben said, now that the defense has impeached this witness, why doesn't he directly ask, why did you minimize your relationship with Katie in front of the jury? I feel like they have asked questions similar to that, but they didn't ask her. I don't know why. The helpful stranger. Big thing for me is injuries on his arm, especially when most dogs taught to bite, taught to go for the arm. Not crazy to think a cop taught his dog to bite. I mean, there are definitely things that just don't make sense with the Commonwealth's theory. And again, there are things that don't make sense with the defense's theory, but they're not here to prove their theory. I know they are, practically speaking, but at the end of the day, if the defense gets up and says, if you're not beyond a reasonable doubt, sure, it happened the way we said, that's fine. But there's no way you can be beyond a reasonable doubt with the way they said it happened. Catherine, question. Peter, do you ever get the vibe that all these people wish she was never charged, that the whole thing would just go away? Yes. Because how does it make their life better if Karen Read goes to prison? After all this harassment in this case, I mean, I think about it from both ends. Whichever side is the truth, because I don't know which side is the truth, but whichever side is the truth, I feel horrible for the people on the other side. If Karen Read did this and there were just all these coincidences and things that make it look like the Alberts were shady or in on this, I feel terrible for the Alberts. A bunch of kids serving our country, men in uniform. But then if it's the other way around, it's those people abusing power in the worst way, and they deserve whatever's coming for them, and I feel horrible for Karen Read. So whichever way this goes, it's really sad. Izzy, do you think that Lally is more focused on fighting the defense theory rather than proving his case? Congrats on 350,000 subscribers. Super happy for you. Thank you, Izzy. And absolutely, that's what it feels like to me. Kentucky Paw Nerd. It is incredibly sus that Jen McCabe asked Brian Albert Jr.'s friend for screenshots of her phone with her bros. Side note, I'm also from Ohio. Yes, Kentucky Paw Nerd. We're going to get there. I mean, that was pretty interesting. Angie, the specifics on some stuff versus other stuff is just odd. Oh yeah, and especially specific memories and how clear their memories are on certain things and not others. Molly, Peter, did Peter or anyone else hear Brian Sr. say when he was being asked about being prepped, I spoke with my lawyer. He is not his lawyer. Did I dream it? No, he did also speak with his lawyer. He has his own private lawyer. So Lally's not his lawyer, but he did speak with his own lawyer, I believe. And I think that's what he was referencing. I don't think you dreamt it. Okay. Then we get to Tristan takes the stand, which is her boyfriend. And this is him. They've been together 8 years. He's a union worker. I mean, that's the other thing. If these people didn't do it, it's like a bunch of just like hardworking blue collar people that this sucks. If this is all just a hoax that's trying to be pinned on them. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that would suck if that's how it went. He went home to get some sleep. 21 to 25 minute drive. She came out pretty soon after he texted here. Caitlin was just normal when he got in the car. That was basically his direct. Confirmed everybody was there when he was there, why he left and when he left. On cross, he's basically a member of the Albert family. He said, no, they didn't celebrate the indictment of Karen Read. Never testified in any hearing or at any point in this case. And the first time he was even prepped is after the trial started. Let's hear a little bit of the exchange on cross.
Never testified before any grand jury regarding this case, correct?
I haven't.
You've never testified previously in any hearing regarding this case, correct?
I haven't.
You were at 34 Fairview Road in Canton at 1:45 in the morning or about 1:45 on January 29th of 2022, correct?
I don't remember the time.
Was it
I mean, this guy
different
doesn't.
than 1:45 in the morning, or was it somewhat close to that?
This guy doesn't remember any time, and he's not afraid to say it. He's not going to guess. He's not going to give him anything. And I actually think the defense attorney ends up having a little fun with him because it's so preposterous that you couldn't say whether it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon or 9 o'clock at night or midnight or after midnight, especially if you went home and were on call till 4 a.m. I'm pretty sure you're looking at the clock, like when is 4 a.m. so I can actually go to sleep and not think I'm on call. but he just refused to say it. Charlie, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. And we've got Andrea gifting some memberships and a lot of new members today. That's awesome. Appreciate you all and welcome. John has kind of something crazy planned for the May membership members only video. I'm not sure I'm looking forward to it, but let's keep listening to him explain this, and Yannetti have a little fun with him refusing to testify about any times.
I'm not going to make up a time. I don't remember.
Was it 9 p.m. on the 28th?
I don't remember times.
So if I asked you if you were there to pick up your girlfriend Caitlin at 9 p.m. on January 28th, you couldn't say if that's true or false?
No, because I'm not making up a time.
Okay, so it could have been 9 p.m. that you were there, not 1:45 in the morning.
I didn't say that.
Well, you've just said that you can't rule out that it was actually 9 p.m. on the 28th, didn't you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Can you answer that? Did you say that?
I didn't say anything. I don't remember time.
No, I understand.
So I'm not going to make up a time.
Hold on. Only one person can speak at a time.
I don't, it could have been later, it could have been early. I don't know a time.
But it couldn't have been 9 p.m. on January 28th. Could it have been?
I don't know.
Like that's a foolish answer. It makes him look evasive. I actually thought he did okay on the stand, but for this part, I was like, dude, why don't you just say, yes, it wasn't 9? But I don't know if it was 11, 12, or 1 or 2, like all that. It was late at night, early morning, but I don't remember the exact time. But Yannetti's not like being too difficult saying it wasn't 9 o'clock.
Okay. What time were you at the waterfall?
I don't remember.
Were you at the waterfall?
Yes, I was.
On what date?
The 28th.
Was it in the morning?
It was at nighttime.
Was it? Okay. What time did you leave the waterfall?
I don't remember.
Did you leave at 5 p.m.?
I don't remember.
Or could it be
Like,
5
seriously? You don't remember if you left at 5? So if I was Yannetti, I'd be like, did you work that day? What time do you work till, or do you not remember that either? I mean, this is just preposterous to me.
p.m. you left?
Could have been 5 in the morning. I don't know.
Yeah, Belinda.
Okay. Leaving aside what time it was, or strike that. Will you testify that you were at 34 Fairview Road on January 29th after midnight?
I don't remember a time.
Okay.
So not your edit said someone testified they didn't use sirens as a courtesy. Okay, so there was no sirens, which is interesting to me. I must have missed that part. But the lights and the commotion and the screaming and all of that, I mean, it's still, there's no way it was quiet. I can't imagine it being quiet. Brian said, why are these people so cagey and evasive about knowing each other? It's a small town. Of course, everybody knows each other. They just sound shady. I agree. And the same thing with this time. Like, just say it was late at night, but I can't remember. No, it wasn't 5 o'clock. It wasn't 9 o'clock. I do know that, but I'm not sure what time it was. Like, just go with that. I agree with you. Give a little bit and it makes you seem more credible. First interview happened after the trial started. And then, okay, now they get into the fact that it was not their original plan. It was not their original plan to have him come back and pick her up.
That is correct.
You had to get up early.
Yes,
And it actually was really early. It could have been as early as 3 a.m., correct?
correct.
So from the beginning, you knew that you weren't going to get much sleep, correct?
Yes,
And if you were going to get any sleep, you couldn't stay at the waterfall all night, correct?
that is correct.
So you left early.
Yes,
And you plan to go home, get whatever rest or sleep you could get, and then wait for the call to go out plowing, correct?
that is correct.
The plan from the beginning was not for you to leave the waterfall, go to Easton, and then drive back from Easton to Canton to pick up Caitlin, and to then take her back to Easton so that you could wait for the call for plowing. That was not the original plan, correct?
No, it wasn't.
No, of course it wasn't.
So that's different than what Caitlin said. Caitlin wasn't, for sure, yes, that was the plan. But she said, no, that was absolutely the plan we talked about. It was a possible plan that would happen. He's like, no, that wasn't the plan, because obviously it wasn't. That's what I'm saying. I thought he had some really good, I don't know if it's like huge highlights for the prosecution, but I mean, I didn't think he had a lot of horrible moments, but that time thing was just too much.
So I apologize, Ron. I withdraw that comment. But the plan changed, correct?
Yes,
And that was because you heard from your girlfriend, Caitlin, correct?
yes.
And I'm going to ask you a question and hope I get an answer. Do you recall what time it was that she contacted you?
No, I don't recall.
Did anybody instruct you not to talk about any times that anything happened?
Absolutely not.
How did Caitlin contact you that night?
Via text, via phone.
And you were in Easton when she did that, correct?
Yes,
She was at 34 Fairview?
yes,
And by the way, the snowstorm was no surprise to you that night, right?
No.
I mean, that's why you were waiting to plow, correct?
yes,
That snowstorm had been forecast.
yes.
And it had started snowing by midnight, correct?
I don't remember when it started snowing.
But for some reason,
So Sonia, while this comment is up there, John actually just texted me and reminded me of he and I were roommates freshman year in our dorm, and apparently somebody was smoking something, I think, on our floor, and he and I slept through a fire alarm, EMS coming through, banging on everybody's door. But I refuse to believe that actually happened. But if it did, maybe I'm saying, okay, maybe I'm with the Alberts here. I guess maybe you can sleep through some of this stuff. We didn't have a dog, but he and I both slept through it, which seems impossible to me, but funny little side story.
And Caitlin now needed to get picked up before you went plowing, correct?
Yes,
That meant, despite the fact that you had to get up potentially at 3 a.m., you now had to make the trip back and forth between Canton and Easton a second time, correct?
yes,
And you considered it to be important enough that you agreed to pick up Caitlin, despite the changing plans, correct?
correct.
All right. Now, when you pulled into that driveway, you at least temporarily parked in the driveway waiting for her, correct?
Yes,
What other cars were in the driveway at that time?
I don't remember.
What side of the driveway did you park on?
I don't remember.
So a couple I don't remember, but again, I honestly think that's kind of legit. I don't know that I would remember exactly where I parked or anything like that. But this was another kind of funny moment on Redirect about why he really went back and got Caitlin Albert.
Now, prior to you leaving the waterfall or during the course of any of the texts or phone calls,
I can't remember became a member. That's pretty funny.
that you received from Caitlin, was there any sort of reason that was discussed as far as picking her up and bringing her in Easton before you went off to
Can you repeat that?
from your discussions with Caitlin, what was the reason that you went back to 34 Fairview to pick her up and bring her home?
Okay.
Allow it. Why'd you do that?
Well, she's high maintenance. I didn't really want to have to deal with it.
So everybody laughs when he's like, and again, I thought this was good. I think it made him seem more credible, more likable. He's like, she's high maintenance, man. I didn't want to deal with it. When she texted me to come pick her up, I came and picked her up. Right? I mean, what do you want me to do? Right? If my girlfriend texts me to come pick her up, I'm going to go pick her up. You want me to say no? It's dangerous outside. It was snowing. I wanted to go pick her up. Have you seen her dad? Right? I don't want to piss her off. I don't want to say no. I don't want her to have to drive or find her own way home. So I thought that was kind of funny. I think that was it. I don't know. There's a little bit more, maybe.
She wanted to come home, is that correct?
Yes,
And did she say why she wanted to come home?
I want to get snowed in.
Allow it.
Now, you testified
She didn't want to get snowed in. It's fair.
before that as you were driving around that night, you were cautious and your hands were attentive to, is that right?
Absolutely.
So as you're driving past your girlfriend's parents' house, was there any reason, excuse me, was there any reason for you to direct your attention to the front lawn area of their home?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And he just kind of confirms they didn't look at the front lawn. Okay. Next, we get to Sarah Levinson, who is an RN and friends with Brian Jr. Before we get there, let's hit some questions. The Helpful Stranger said, sent an email about a possible case. Please be on the lookout. I will. I absolutely will. Caitlin Farrell said, Lally has to be absolutely dreading putting Proctor on the stand. He can't be happy with the hand he's been dealt. I mean, that's one that's going to be, all hands on deck when that guy takes the stand. John, it sometimes seems like the Commonwealth is playing the quantity versus quality game. Lots of witnesses, but nothing quality dominant. Thoughts? I don't know, man. I don't even think the quantity is that good for him at this point. I really don't. It's wild. This guy only interviewed over the phone over a year after the event. He was at the scene in a car at the time of the crash. I mean, all these people, and some of them, I think there were issues. Like if you get the defense's vibe on cross, they're like, you only got interviewed after we pushed for your information. After we pushed, did they interview? And now you have this huge piece of evidence. One of the witnesses coming later happened like that. Michael says snow can absorb 60% or more of sound around it. That's interesting. Absolutely not. Is there an echo? Interesting. Madison said, this trial is giving me a headache, waiting for the prosecution to start connecting the dots, prove Karen did it. Testimony seems so repetitive so far. And Madison, I think this sounds like an echo because a lot of people feel the same way. All right. So this witness is Brian's friend. Finally, the judge tells Lally to move on when she starts describing how the house is set up yet again, because we've heard it so many times. She left between 1:30 and 2 a.m. They were celebrating, dancing. Everybody was happy the whole time. She doesn't know John O'Keefe or Karen Reed. They didn't come in the house that night. McCabe indicated somebody was coming. She wasn't sure who. McCabe drove him home. Someone in the car said something. I didn't know where this was going. It was very weird because of hearsay. She couldn't get into the comment, but somebody said something while looking at the yard. We weren't sure what it was until we hear from the next witness. On cross, very close friends with the Alberts. Not really friends with Colin. No hot tub pictures. He tries to get into the fact that, Caitlin Albert and Katie McLaughlin were closer friends than she is with Colin. There was a lot of objections sustained there. Doesn't really remember who left when, didn't hear any dogs or crashes or smashes. She sort of saw a glass in the yard. Again, not strong evidence at all, in my opinion. Didn't see the taillights, didn't see a man, shoe, hat, all those things. Proctor interviewed her 9 months later. Defense team visited her and she refused to speak with them. On redirect, she agreed she hadn't been in the basement since college, but I kind of liked her answer to this question because the defense attorney sometimes, and again, a lot of people like these defense attorneys. I think they're doing a great job. But if a witness doesn't speak to them, they make it seem like, oh, that witness must be so biased. They're horrible for not speaking with them. But there's sometimes a decent explanation for that. And I thought her explanation was perfectly fine as to why she decided not to speak with the defense attorneys.
Oh,
I do recall who the other trooper was.
I don't remember the name specifically. It was not like a common last name, though. I know that.
And as far as defense investigators or anybody else coming to your house, you chose not to speak with them, is that correct?
Correct. I was not home when what Mr. Ionetti was talking about. My parents were home, but out of respect, I contacted the defense to tell them the next day, I believe, that I had nothing to have a conversation with them about.
So again, that sounds a lot better than how it was left with the defense, that she refused to talk to the defense. Like, no, actually, when they showed up that day, I wasn't home. But out of respect for them, I called them and was like, hey, we're not going to talk. I don't really have anything I want to talk to you about. So she didn't have to do that. She could have just continued to ignore them. Instead, she decided to reach out, say she doesn't have to talk to them. Why? Why did she do that?
Why not?
I know that legally I didn't have to, and I didn't have anything to say.
She's like, legally, I didn't have to. And I didn't have anything to say to them. So that's why I didn't want to talk to them. And I think that's fine. I think that's fine. Molly Biddy. Now, obviously, it would have been better if she did. And if this was a state where you're in a jurisdiction where you can depose witnesses, they could subpoena her for deposition. I thought Brian Sr. said, I spoke with my lawyer when referring to Lally, but I will bow to your excellent ear. I'm new to all this, but learning so much. Thank you for everything. Excited to catch you live. So, Molly, my so-called excellent ear is listening at 2 times speed. I miss stuff sometimes too. This is not my trial. I'm not listening to it as closely as I would be if I was sitting in the courtroom. So sometimes I mishear things as well. It could have been, and if he did, that's a slip of the tongue. Lally is definitely not his lawyer. And I think the defense may have pointed it out if they thought he was saying that. All right. And that is the end of this witness. So now we're going to get to Julie Nagel, who was her friend. She was in the car with the McCabes as well, friends with Brian Albert Jr. Let's hit a couple questions here first, actually. What if she is convicted, but then the feds find fraud? That would be something that could come up on appeal. If the feds find that they covered something up or there was some major wrongdoing on that part, it could definitely become an appellate issue. Lori, Peter, can you think of any possible good reason why these interviews took place so long after the incident? I can't, but what do I know? I don't think you're going to like my my answer, but either horrible police, either complete negligent police work, or they didn't want them to be involved. They didn't want their names on the reports. They didn't want anybody to know that they were there. There's no good reason. There's no good reason why you wouldn't interview these people, especially because some of them have good evidence for the Commonwealth. So why wouldn't you interview them and use them as witnesses for trial, which they ended up doing? Nikki, chat. Thank you all for being such a friendly, kind, and welcoming group. Peter and team, thank you for giving us this wonderful platform. Thank you, Nikki. And I echo that. This chat is the best. And if you guys wouldn't mind, we've got almost 10,000 people here again, which is just wild for an afternoon live on a Tuesday. But hit that like button. The last video, we got to 10,000 likes, or just about. I think we're going to get it to 10,000. Let's get this one to 10,000 too. Everybody hit that like button. I appreciate you guys so much. Whoops. That's it for this witness. Okay, so Julie Nagel, same background testimony. Colin left before midnight. We know that's wrong. But again, when they say stuff like that, it's just like, it's ish. It's ish, midnight-ish. We don't expect everybody to be looking at their clock when everybody's leaving. Before she went out, to see her brother. She saw a black SUV. So that's the second person that said they saw a dark SUV. That may have been Karen Reed's. It was gone before her brother got there. She saw it. She wasn't sure if she saw it in different positions or locations. She saw it through the window. It was snowing flakes at the time, basically. But some very major testimony that I did not know was coming out, that came out through this witness, that we're going to listen to together. That is, I think, potentially the biggest piece of evidence that came out today. Maybe that has come out in this whole trial. Finally, somebody connecting the dots of the timeline for the Commonwealth. How did everybody go out and not see John O'Keefe? How did everybody go out and not see the taillights and the hat and the shoe and all this stuff in the snow? Well, that's not the case. And I think that's what the defense told us, is how did everybody walk out of this house and not see it? Well, maybe they were wrong. And again, maybe we're nitpicking, but maybe this is them not having all the goods, because this witness says she saw something. Now, the defense will pick at this and they will impeach it, and we'll have to determine, and we'll kind of talk about it together, whether or not we think this is credible once we hear what the defense says. But first, let's hear her initial description of what she saw and how she saw it.
These positions, talking to you in relation to the seat that she's in.
Yeah, I would say she was kind of turned back a little bit towards us in the backseat.
And what I'm asking is, she turned towards sort of the center of the vehicle, or she turned towards the window next to her?
Towards the center of the vehicle.
And you're speaking to her and to Ms. Levinson, correct?
Yes.
Which direction are you facing?
Facing towards Sarah and Jen,
And which direction is Sarah facing as you're having this conversation?
towards me.
And as you drive by home, what, if anything, did you observe?
I did notice behind Sarah and Jen, I did notice something out of the ordinary, like a black blob in the ground by the flagpole.
She did notice something out of the ordinary, like a black blob near the flagpole. That's huge evidence, because we know what that is now, right? That big black blob is probably John O'Keefe, but we get even more of a description that makes us think it's him, because the defense has done a huge highlight of a 6 foot, 200-pound man. How could you miss that? Well, let's see how big that black blob is.
And from where you were situated in the car, do you know sort of what was the lighting like over in that area of the yard that you saw the light from?
It was pretty dark out, but the snow was kind of heavy at that point, so couldn't really see too much. But
So it's not coming down at that point?
Yes.
And if you know about where in relation to the flagpole was this black object that you saw?
I'd probably say close to the street, but in their lawn, right kind of in front of the flagpole next to it.
And again, so I think this is big. I think this is really important for the Commonwealth. I think they needed to do this. I think they did do this. Congratulations for them for getting a piece of evidence out. I think that's really important. But she's getting really specific now about where it was. And we're supposed to believe, and again, more of this is going to come on cross, but she's driving by after a day/night of drinking. She sees some kind of blob and she knows exactly where it is, and it's unusual. It caught her attention, and that's how she's trying to say it on direct. Thank you, Love, by the way, for spreading the love.
Now, I'm sorry to do this again, but Ms. Gilman, Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would just ask that Exhibit number 72 be back up on the screen.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I should actually ask for exhibit number 72, please. Now, Ms. Nagel, if I could ask the area where you saw this black object, you see that area in the photograph?
Yes.
If you could, using the laser pointer, direct your attention to where, as specific as you can be, where you observe this. Now, as the vehicle is going by the house, as you make that observation,
She points to the specific spot where she saw that black blob.
what, if anything, did you say in the backseat of the car?
I did say out loud. I was like, I think I might have saw something. I'm not kind of sure what it was. But I was also intoxicated drinking. So didn't really know what it was, what I saw.
So she says, I did say something, that I saw something, I don't know what it was, but I was intoxicated being drinking. Intoxicated is more than just like having a drink. Like, you're not intoxicated just because you have a beer. Usually is more on the drunk side, but maybe highly intoxicated or drunk or whatever would be even further on the spectrum. But so she even qualifies her own testimony and what she saw, realizing that she was drunk or intoxicated, I should say, at the time. Usually not great in the one eyewitness we have at this point to put John O'Keefe in the yard at 2 a.m. when they were leaving. That also puts an unknown black SUV at the house.
But Sarah was like, "What, Julie?" And I was like, "I don't know what it was." And then that was kind of really it.
And that was sort of the end of the conversation in reference to that. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
If I may have a moment, Your Honor.
All right, so that's basically the end of direct. And again, I thought that was really important. Key witness. But once again, this key eyewitness, who is the first one to connect the major dot, guess what? She wasn't interviewed until October, 9 months after this happened. So we're talking about somebody who was an eyewitness after drinking all night, who maybe saw something she wasn't sure what she saw, and that memory was recalled 9 months after the incident. Now, as far as the defense's theory, now, first off, if we're trying to poke holes in the prosecution's case, that doesn't seem very reliable to me. And we're going to listen to the defense cross-examine her and chip at her credibility even more. But on the defense side, am I really supposed to believe all these young kids that the Alberts trusted them with this big lie and this big cover-up, and they were all in on it? And they're all that close with the Alberts that they're willing to do that? How many friends do you have like that? And it's not like they have that much power that they can make that many promises and fix all these people's lives and keep them on the leash, that any of these people could turn on them at any moment. I guess the other theory could be none of these kids that were hanging out in the house saw this because, you know, Brian, Albert, and Higgins went through the bull door and dropped John in the yard, which again could go to the defense's theory and could make sense why they didn't leave him downstairs, but, you know, whatever. Interesting. Really, really wild to me that she wasn't interviewed until 9 months later. She saw the dark SUV kind of driving around near where the body was found. She has connections to the Alberts and the McCabe's, of course. When she texted Brian to go home, it seemed like it was the appropriate time to leave, but then she changed her mind. Then they get into just how much did she have to drink.
You for a copy of that text message?
I don't know.
Is that text message still on your phone?
I don't know.
Did you delete that text message?
I don't
Objection,
know.
Your Honor.
So let's move this along, Stephen.
When you texted Ryan that night, you were contacting him because you thought it was an appropriate time for you to leave, correct?
Yeah.
How long did it take your brother Ryan to get to the Albert home after that text message?
I don't know.
Was it an hour?
I don't think so. No.
Was it a half hour?
I do not know.
So you have no idea how long it took him to get there and how long you stayed after you texted him, correct?
I don't know. No.
By the time you're texting Ryan, Ms. Nagel, how much do you think you would have to drink since 6 or 7 p.m.?
A decent amount.
Would you say that another word for it would be a lot?
No.
What were you drinking that night?
Michelob Ultra.
I had a decent amount. Would another way to say it be a lot? She's like, no. It's like, okay, but you already kind of said you were intoxicated, and it seemed like people didn't take seriously what you were saying in the car because you were intoxicated. So that context that she put in kind of already hurt her testimony. So when she's trying to push back now and make it seem like she wasn't drunk, I'm not sure how effective that is.
Ultras.
And how many did you have?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Did you bring your own Michelob Ultras to the party?
I don't know.
You don't remember whether you brought any beer to the party?
I don't know.
Where was the beer?
I either brought it or I don't know. I don't remember. It was 2.5 years ago.
Where was it within the home?
In the fridge.
You have no memory of like running out of beer that night, correct?
I don't remember. No.
There appeared to be plenty of beer to go around, correct?
For myself, yeah.
Between the time that you texted your brother Ryan and the time he arrived, it's fair to say that you changed your mind about going home with him, correct?
Yes.
You changed your mind while you were still inside the Albert home, correct?
I did not say that. No.
Well, I'm asking you now.
No.
You changed your mind only after you left the residence and went out to talk to him?
Yes.
But then later, she had to leave at 1:45. All right, let's talk about the screenshot that somebody mentioned earlier. This is another shady moment here.
Text messages that you had with your friend Ryan, and you could not recall whether any investigator or assistant district attorney asked you for screenshots of that, correct?
My friend or my brother?
Did I say friend?
You did, yes.
Thank you for correcting me. I did mean your brother Ryan, thank you. And I appreciate the fact that you're paying attention, at least one of us is.
Yeah.
So I asked you about the screenshots of the text messages that you had with your brother Ryan and whether any investigator or assistant district attorney had asked you for them, correct?
I don't remember.
You didn't remember, right. But somebody did ask you for a screenshot, correct?
Yes.
Who was that?
JJ McCabe.
And by JJ, you mean Jennifer McCabe.
Correct. Yes.
When JJ asked you, do you remember when it was that JJ, Jennifer McCabe, asked you for a copy of those screenshots?
I do not remember. No.
Did you
She doesn't know if the Commonwealth did or the defense or anybody else, but she knows JJ McCabe asked for the screenshot of it. The same person that was deleting other people sending her phone numbers. Was she investigating this case or trying to build a case? Interesting.
provide them to Jennifer McCabe?
I did. Yes.
Did Jennifer McCabe, when she asked you to provide her with those screenshots, claim that she was an investigator in this case?
Objection.
You can answer that.
Do you mind repeating that, please?
Sure. When Jennifer McCabe, or as you call her, JJ, asked you for screenshots of the text messages that you had with your brother Ryan, did Jennifer McCabe tell you that she was investigating this case?
No.
And Greg, I don't think the chances are high, but it's an interesting point you bring up as we're listening to this part.
And you have no memory of providing those screenshots to any investigator other than Jennifer McCabe, correct?
I don't remember. No.
Okay. Now, when you're ultimately leaving the residence, it's about, I think you said 1:45 a.m. is your best guess?
Yes.
You walked out which door?
The front door.
And that would be the one to the left, right? The real front door of the house.
Yes. Correct.
That door faces right to the front lawn, correct?
Yes.
You left with Jennifer McCabe, Matthew McCabe, and Sarah Levinson, correct?
Correct.
And you all went out the same door, correct?
I know what door I
Jordan,
went.
a lot of people are kind of saying similar things here, and I don't necessarily disagree with them. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
On May 14th of 2024, correct?
Lally asked me how big it was, so I just told him right now. Yeah.
Yeah, Lally, when you say Lally, you mean Mr. Lally.
Yes, Mr. Lally.
I'm
Correct.
going
Yeah.
to back it up just a little.
Any investigator. You never before ever told any investigator that what you actually saw was a black blob, correct?
I don't remember.
And you also never, ever told any investigator that this black object that you described was actually 5 feet or 6 feet long, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So these details, a black object versus a 5 to 6 foot black blob. The 5 to 6 foot black blob sounds a lot more like a 6 foot 100 or 220 pound guy than a black object sounds like a shovel, right? Pretty different there in my opinion. Netwoman, thank you so much. Can a witness refuse to talk to the defense? Yes. Is it only obstruction if it's with the police interviews? Sorry, I watched too much TV. Thank you for doing the recaps. I've learned everything of this case from you. One case that hasn't been on Dateline or 2020. So it really depends on the state, right? Because here in Florida, for felonies, we could subpoena witnesses and force them to show up, take a deposition. We can't force anybody to have an off-the-record telephone conference or come meet with us. We can subpoena them to come to trial. Sometimes lawyers don't want to do that if they don't know what the witness is going to say. It would seem fair as if we would exchange things. That's why it seems like in this state, they do have to exchange the police interview. So at least they know what they said to police officers. As you can tell in some states, in some situations, they don't trust what the police officers report back if it's not recorded. So that's why they like to talk to them in addition to that. But yes, they are allowed to refuse to talk to defense attorneys. Breezy, do you think shoddy police work could result in a not guilty verdict? Absolutely. Nino, what's the minimum maximum sentence if convicted? I don't know what the minimum is based on all the different charges. The maximum, I think, is life. I think she could be looking up to life. John, would lawyers be classified as part of the executive or judicial branch of government? Definitely judicial, but also executive prosecutors, especially federal prosecutors. But there are lawyers in every branch of the government, obviously, because a lot of legislators are lawyers too. DC, why do you think the defense and the prosecution didn't ask her why she changed her mind to not go with her brother? I think she said she just wanted to hang out longer. And he said, well, I'm not going to stay and hang out. And she decided she wanted to stay and hang out. And the McCabe's would give her a ride home. Valerie, I feel as if the defense could be a tad bit less aggressive with some of the witnesses to get better responses. How do you feel about their approach? I think it's definitely their style that they're going to be, tough, and they're going to hold the line, and they're going to push, and they're going to ask the tough questions and get real answers from these witnesses. That's the feeling I get from them.
The very first time you're now mentioning this testimony that this black object, as you describe it, was actually 5 or 6 feet long was just today, after 12 noon on May 14th of 2024, correct?
Lally asked me how big it was, so I just told him right now. Yeah.
Yeah, Lally, when you say Lally, you mean Mr. Lally?
Yes, Mr. Lally. Correct. Yes.
Mr. Lally.
And the defense lawyer did that on purpose, and a lot of you picked up on that. A lot of you.
Ali just asked you during this trial. Again,
Yeah.
right before this jury. That's the first time you've ever been asked or ever given an answer as to how big that object was, correct?
Not necessarily, no.
Did you review any report that was taken when the investigators spoke to you regarding this case before taking the stand today?
No.
You've never testified in a grand jury regarding this case, correct?
Correct.
You've never testified in any hearing regarding this case, correct?
In this hearing, in this case,
Besides today.
no.
And you would agree with me that it is nowhere on record that this black object that you talk about was ever 5 or 6 feet long prior to telling the jury that today.
Objection.
You have to ask that differently, Mr. Moody.
Today, this afternoon, is the first time that you've provided testimony or information to any official regarding this case that the object was 5 or 6 feet long.
No.
I'm sorry?
No.
Who did you tell prior to today?
About what?
Okay, I thought we were talking about the fact that you now testified that this black object was 5 or 6 feet long. You recall that?
Today, yes.
And my question to you was, you've never mentioned that this black object was 5 or 6 feet long until the last hour or so when Mr. Lally questioned you about it, correct?
Yes.
Now, when you were passing the property, you did not think it was a body.
At the time, no.
You claim that you told everyone in the car that you saw something, correct?
Correct.
And Demurd said others in the car are going to say, no, we don't know yet. We did hear from the RN. What was her name? Sarah Levinson. And she definitely was saying that this witness said something, but she couldn't get into what she said because it was hearsay. But she definitely said she said something. So we'll see what the other people in the car said. I think so far that seems like confirmation. I knew something was going to be coming based on what she said.
And your friend Sarah said what? Or something to that effect, correct?
Correct.
And there was no further conversation after that, correct?
Not that I can remember. No.
And you didn't think that it was a person who was in trouble, correct?
Objection.
Did you think that? At what time, Mr.?
When you were leaving the property, after leaving the house at 1:45 a.m. and getting into the vehicle and passing the Albert lawn, you did not think that you saw a person who was in trouble, correct?
No.
Or a person that may have needed help, correct?
I don't know. No.
And that's important. But just wait, because she puts 2 and 2 together eventually.
And you were right there, correct? Passing the property?
I was passing the property.
Not
Yes.
as close to the property as your friend Sarah Levinson, but you were in the back seat on the driver's side, correct?
Correct.
And you were in a car such that if you thought that you saw something that could have been a person, all you had to do was tell the driver, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you tell the driver that you saw somebody who was in trouble?
Well, I said it out loud in the car.
So is it your testimony now that you said out loud in the car, there's a person who's in trouble?
That's not what I said. No.
Sounds
You
like
didn't mention a person at all
she kind of confirmed that, but it was kind of confusing the way the questions were.
in the car, correct?
No.
Did not tell Matthew McCabe, hey, stop the car, correct?
I did not know.
If you had seen a person in the snow lying there, you would have done something about it, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You didn't ask Matthew McCabe to stop.
No.
You didn't ask him to back up.
Nope.
You didn't ask him to check on whatever it was.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
I think this is all good questioning by the defense, but her point remains. If she saw the black blobs 5 to 6 feet in the snow, it does what the Commonwealth needs it to do, regardless of what they say about her not saying or knowing it was a body at the time. Now, the fact that they're going to argue she was drunk, didn't tell anybody for 9 months, and just said it is a little too convenient, another coincidence like somebody mentioned. Bill Smith, I can't tell if you're messing with me. The person that struck and killed O'Keefe after he was attacked by the dog would have been leaving at around 12:10 or 12:20 or so. Who left at that time? Again, can't tell if you're messing with me, but the 2 people that potentially were there or left around that time, in my opinion, from what we've heard, is either Karen Reed or Colin Albert. That's who most people have been pointing the finger at. So we'll see. We'll see. Charlie, could Karen testify and say why Jen separated her on the way out and say what she said? Would they allow the defendant or object on hearsay? So it depends if they can find a good exception for that, like maybe the effect on the hear, that whatever Jen McCabe told her, it doesn't matter if it was true or not, but the effect it had on Karen Reed was to get her to leave the bar without John O'Keefe or separate themselves. So I think there are some exceptions they could potentially get into that if that's a question they ask, if she takes the stand, right? A lot of ifs there.
Your phone with you, correct?
Yeah,
Your phone was working, correct?
I don't remember.
You used that phone to text your brother.
An hour and a half before.
This is where she starts to get even more evasive.
Are you testifying today that your phone was completely out of charge?
I don't remember. No.
Text your good friend Brian Albert Jr. to tell him that you saw somebody lying on his front lawn?
Did I text him
Yes.
that night?
As you are supposedly seeing this black object,
Objection.
the immediate aftermath of that, did you text Brian Albert Jr. to tell him about that black object?
So in that form, it's sustained. Ask it differently, Mr. Moody.
You had your friend Sarah Levinson with you, correct?
I did in the car. Yes.
You knew she was a nurse, correct?
Yeah.
You didn't tell your friend Sarah that you just saw somebody lying in the snow during a blizzard who might need some help, correct?
I did not know.
That Brian Jr.'s father was a police officer, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
So let's move this. Are you just about done with this line of questioning? I'll give you a little bit more.
There's a couple more questions.
Okay, go ahead.
You knew that he was a police officer, correct?
Yes.
And obviously a first responder as a police officer, right?
Yeah.
And you knew that that was Jennifer McCabe's brother-in-law, correct?
Yes.
And Jennifer McCabe was in the car with you, correct?
Yes.
You didn't tell Jennifer McCabe or JJ to call her brother-in-law, correct?
No.
The fact of the matter is, you did nothing, right?
They've proven that she didn't know it was a body, right? But that's not the point. So I know a lot of people are loving the defense. They're crushing it. You know, I agree. They're crushing it. But the fact still remains that she testified to. And in the light most favorable to the Commonwealth at this point, that's an important fact.
Yeah.
And that's because you did not see a body on that lawn, correct?
Objection.
Is that true? Can you answer that?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
You didn't see a body on that lawn.
I mean, I don't know what I saw, but I saw an object.
You were drinking for hours.
Is that a question?
Yes, you were drinking for hours. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And you were intoxicated as you were leaving that home.
Objection.
Were you?
Yes.
You were drunk, right?
Some would say, yeah.
You would
There we
say.
go. They did get her to agree she's drunk. So now they're hitting her credibility, right? Did she make the whole thing up? If she saw a blob, I think if the jury believes she saw a blob, I think they believe it was John O'Keefe. But if they think she's just making it up or drunk or was seeing things or whatever, obviously it wasn't that important because she didn't mention it to anybody, then they're going to dismiss her testimony.
Yeah.
You believe that except for Matt McCabe, who was driving, everybody in the car was drunk, right?
Objection.
And I don't know.
I'm wondering what that answers.
You have previously testified. I'm sorry, strike that. You have previously given a statement indicating that you believe that everybody in that car except for Matthew McCabe was drunk. Do you deny that?
I don't remember at this moment.
All right. You told investigators that when Brian Albert Jr. called you the next morning and you found out about the tragedy the previous night, you, quote, put two and two together, correct?
I did, yes.
And when you put two
So
and two,
the very next morning when Brian Albert Jr. calls her to tell her what happened and that a body was found on the lawn, she put two and two together and she knew what she saw that last night must have been that body.
together, you did not call the county police, correct?
I did not know.
Not call the state police, correct?
Nope.
Not call the district attorney's office.
No.
You would agree with me that you just sat on this revelation, correct?
I would.
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay, that's sustained in that form.
And you were not interviewed by any
She didn't tell state police. She didn't tell investigators. She didn't tell Brian Albert Sr. She didn't tell nobody has testified that she said this to them yet. Now, maybe it's been kept out because of hearsay. I don't know, but there's nothing corroborating this at this point. And Sandy B says, if she said that, wouldn't Jen have remembered that when Karen called? Yeah, I would think so. Be like, you know what? The girl in the car, Brian Jr.'s friend, said she saw a blob in the lawn. It must have been John. My gosh, we could have saved him. I feel so horrible. What if we would have saved him at that moment? But no, none of this. John O'Rourke said, rate these trials. Brooks, Murdaugh, Reed. Ooh, that's tough. Brooks is last for me. It's kind of miserable. I think I would say Murdaugh, Reed, Brooks, but Reed has the potential of getting ahead of Murdaugh, but the Commonwealth's presentation is a tough watch. So I would say Murdaugh, Reed, Brooks at this point, but they're all pretty close.
investigator in January, February, March, or anytime over the spring or summer of 2022, correct?
I don't remember the time frame, but not right after. No.
And when an investigator finally spoke to you, it was Michael Proctor, correct?
Correct.
He was the one who took your statement on October 12th of 2022, correct?
If that was the date and time, yes.
And that was over 8 months after you were driving past the Albert home at around 2 a.m. while you were drunk and supposedly seeing some black object, correct?
Before 2 a.m., yes.
She's clear as before 2 a.m. She agreed again that she was drunk. So driving by the house drunk and saw a black object. Belinda said, as a juror, I'd acquit these people. They're too evasive. Sleuthy asked a good question. Peter, why wasn't it out there when she went out to talk to her brother in the truck with his headlights shining directly where John was, and neither was the SUV. Well, Sleuthy, it's an obvious answer. Duh. Because she was focused on her brother and talking to him. And when you're focused on talking to somebody, you don't see anything else, especially not a yard. Ask Tristan, ask Caitlin Albert, ask everybody else that walked by between the hours John O'Keefe, a 6-foot black blob, was laying in the yard. Nobody else saw it. And even when she saw it, she wasn't concerned and didn't tell anybody and didn't tell law enforcement, didn't call and think it was important, didn't care enough about John O'Keefe and his family to try to help get answers, try to limit in that timeline, which she could have and should have done as part of this investigation. I would have even asked her that. You could have helped with the timeline in this case. If you would have told somebody about this right as soon as you put 2 and 2 together, which was hours after you drove by at 2 a.m., found out, 7 o'clock in the morning. But no, she didn't. And the jury's going to have to weigh her credibility. All right. And then right after cross is over, what does the judge do? Stops for the day. No redirect. I don't think Lally has had a redirect that has lasted more than 5 or 10 minutes, yet we couldn't finish that redirect today. Why? And this is, some people are going to say she's biased, giving the Commonwealth more time to prepare, and maybe that's true. I don't know. I just thought that was so weird to make this lay witness show up again tomorrow morning, as opposed to her just being done with the case. I bet she can't wait to be done with the case. I thought that was really weird, but this judge has cut off and stopped the trial multiple times in very weird situations. We've got 11,000 people in the chat, which is crazy. I think that's a new high for this case. Hopefully all of you guys have enjoyed it and hit that like button as we continue to discuss the good, the bad, the ugly with this case. Nina said, off topic, but can you quickly explain the confrontation clause means? I heard it in YSL trial as an objection, but don't understand it. The defendant has a right to confront the witnesses against him, to have them testify in front of him, cross-examine them, scrutinize their evidence and testimony. That's generally the confrontation clause. I was going to say something else. Oh, Daybell, really big witness today that I did a video on that's going to post tonight if you guys are following that case. And yesterday, I forgot to tell you why I was late last night. I said I was going to in the beginning and I forgot. Maria sent me a DM and reminded me it was Brooks, my daughter's sports awards event, presentation, whatever. And she got MVP of her flag football team. First year ever playing it. She played both ways, running back, receiver, and middle linebacker. I was super pumped and excited. It was so fun. My favorite sport to sit and watch for any of my kids so far. And it was amazing. She got MVP and she was so surprised and excited. We were all super pumped for it. So just wanted to share that with you guys. We're fam here, right? So hit the like button on your way out and make sure you subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe as well and hit the reminder bell so you don't miss any future streams. Or like Brooklyn Basement, I noticed she was behind today and hated it because she wasn't in the mix, mixing it up with all of us real time. But thank you guys so much for joining me. Until next time, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a pase you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.